Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser. It's 4 p.m. on the East Coast, 1 p.m. on the West Coast. Sean Diddy Combs has pleaded not guilty to several federal charges. He appeared before a judge in New York City today after prosecutors unsealed a 3-count indictment. The music mogul is facing charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Prosecutors say Combs is a flight risk and should remain in custody leading up to his trial. His legal team is asking the court to set bail at as much as $50 million. Investigators accuse Combs of abusing, threatening, and coercing multiple victims for, quote, decades. They say he didn't act alone and he had help from people within what they call the Combs enterprise. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson is joining me. And Jessica, you've been joining us throughout the afternoon to walk us through this, each time from a different location. But I do want to ask you, this initial court appearance, this arraignment with Combs in federal court, what typically happens in a setting like that?
So typically speaking, the charges will be read, the defendant will be made aware of what the charges are, and at that point, there will be some administrative stuff. So maybe a judge will, for instance, start scheduling things. We've talked a lot throughout the day about how there'd be a discussion about whether or not Sean Combs would be released on bail or not. But a lot of times it's, we're talking about it obviously because it involves Sean Combs, but it's not this momentous thing in the courtroom. A lot of times what you would see is the judge saying, here are the charges, talking to the attorneys a little bit about scheduling and when the next hearing conference, for instance, will be, trying to get a sense of the case and how long it could take on the judge's calendar.
Jessica, given the fact that we have several civil cases that have gone through litigation. We have the video that surfaced in May of Combs and one of the alleged victims. Well, we know her name. She's Cassie Ventura, and the abuse that was taking place inside a hotel room for which Combs apologized. Do you anticipate that some of that evidence will make its way into this case eventually if it gets that far?
Very probably. One thing I would say is, yes, that's evidence that looks like it fits within the charges here and that it would be relevant and probative and it would be, we can all imagine, useful for the prosecution, not just for proving the elements of the crime, but also because it makes Sean Combs look like the type of person who would commit these crimes. And that's where we all need to be careful that the evidence isn't more prejudicial than probative. Now, in terms of what evidence will come in, for everybody watching, this is a question of the federal rules of evidence. And so just because something was part of a civil case, specifically a state civil case, that doesn't automatically mean that, oh, it was part of another case, so it's going to be part of this criminal case. And in this case, this federal criminal case, every piece of evidence the judge will still have to examine to make sure that it can be let in. And your question about evidence, Lindsay, I think is a great one because it reminds us where we are in this case, right? We are not at a jury trial. We're at a place where we're going to start fighting and the defense will try and get the whole case thrown out, then just some of the charges, and they will be fighting about the scope of the case. And by scope of the case, we mean the charges and the evidence.
Jessica, I keep coming back to some of the U.S. Attorney's comments in his press conference today, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. He said, again, these are from the allegations. Combs did not do this alone. He used employees of his business and associates to get his way, from high-ranking supervisors to assistants to household staff who booked hotel rooms, stocked those hotel rooms with supplies, and cleaned up rooms after. And again, some of the allegations are very disturbing and graphic. I do want to let people know if they're watching at home. I do want to give that warning. And that many of these people also arranged travel for sex workers with whom many of the victims are said to have been coerced to engage in acts with, and delivered cash to pay for these sex workers. Is the idea that Combs is the only one charged right now because these people might be cooperating, they might have engaged in some sort of plea agreement, and their prosecutors are trying to get the bigger fish in this case, which would be Combs?
I think you absolutely got it. And we've seen this in a lot of cases where you work your way to the bigger fish. And in this case, the prosecution is really arguing here that Sean Combs is the head of this criminal enterprise. So you mentioned a couple of different people who allegedly helped in committing these crimes and who are allegedly part of this racketeering scheme. And I would say for those people, what we have to think is, have they already agreed to some sort of deal where they, for instance, were granted immunity if they provided evidence? And that could be evidence that we see now show up in this complaint. And or are there people that the prosecution is continuing to talk to and continuing to say, if you cooperate with us, if you testify at trial, if you provide us with more information, then here's what we will give for you. But yes, absolutely, particularly when it comes to these racketeering charges, what we see is the prosecution either charging the quote unquote smaller fish first, or talking to them and then moving up and up and up to somebody like Sean Combs.
We did hear from Combs' attorney, who says his client is pleading not guilty and that they will defend it with vigor and they expect to have a good outcome from this case. In a previous statement, he had said, while his client is an imperfect man, he is not a criminal. That said, you and I have discussed the place where we are now, which is indictment, versus the burden of proof eventually that the government will have in getting a conviction. What challenges do they face?
So this is a great question, because we look at all of that evidence, and I think on a human level, you look at the evidence, you look at the allegations, and you think there's going to be a conviction. But you are exactly right to highlight that there is a big distance between an indictment and a conviction. So for the defense, I think, and of course, every defendant, let's be honest, has an attorney who says we are going to vigorously defend until the moment sometimes that there is a plea deal. And in this case, there will be fights about, I think, the evidence, how it was obtained, whether or not it falls within those federal rules of evidence that we just talked about, whether or not it can be led into trial. And they will try and discredit witnesses. They will try and discredit certain evidence, saying it was, for instance, what we sometimes see is improperly obtained. What we know here is that the federal prosecutors did get a search warrant. It looks like a lot of the evidence here is a result of that search warrant. And it's not to say that there isn't anything for the defense to argue. There will be, I think, vigorous motion practice. They will vigorously defend against the charges and the evidence. But that's probably what we're looking at in terms of the defense.
What does a judge consider when determining whether someone is going to be held in detention pre-trial?
Yeah, another important question here. And we're weighing a number of different factors in federal court, but one of the things we're looking at is whether or not the person is a flight risk. We're also looking at whether or not the person poses a danger to society. And we're looking at basically a balance of fairness. Do you need this person to be behind bars as we are approaching a trial? Because we know that this could take potentially years to get to a trial. And so those are the kind of multi-factor tests that a judge is weighing in this case.
You said this could take years to get to a trial. Why is that?
Well, because for a couple of different reasons. I mean, one, look at the difference between when the search warrant was executed and when the indictment came. That took a few months. And two, judges don't always have clear calendars. I mean, I know this sounds so pedestrian, but judges have to make room in their calendars. I had the privilege of working for a federal judge and seeing his calendar. And these are judges that are just getting, particularly in the Southern District of New York, busier and busier. They're also, as we just talked about, there's going to be a lot of fighting before trial. Now, it's not to say that it will take years, just this isn't going to be next week. It's not going to be before the end of the year. It could be months. But they're going to, again, fight over the counts, fight over the evidence, fight over the witnesses. There's a lot of motion practice, a lot of hearings way before you ever get to a trial.
Jessica Levinson, thank you.